Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery Podcast. I'm Jackie Tomes, and this show is all about the highs, the lows, the lessons in creating the holiday every 6 weeks lifestyle. So we're talking about everything from the big picture strategy, maximising your potential as a human, right down to the practical solutions. So today we are talking about down valuations, but perhaps not in the way that you might expect from other property podcasts. Because this is about how you can feel great about getting a down valuation. Can you imagine? It's something that we all dread in property. You have this great plan for what you're going to do when you're getting ready to refinance, and the surveyor comes out and they don't give you what you want. We have been through so much stress worrying about these situations over the years, and actually stressful situations when it hasn't gone to plan. And we've come to some pretty deep realizations about all of this, which is what Dom and Dave are going to be sharing with you today. So buckle up for this one. You can really transform your life if you take on board the learnings from this one. So enjoy, let's do this.
Good morning, afternoon, evening to the listeners, and hello Dave out in South Africa.
Hello. Yes, on the golf course. We did 18 holes this morning. Great.
Oh, nice. Living the life. Living the dream. So today's topic is how to feel good about a down valuation, which is it's not just about a down valuation. It's any event in our life which we perceive as bad or negative. So yeah, this was your a talk that you gave at one of our retreats. So yeah. give us an overview. Where would you want to start?
Well, okay. So you're right, Dom. It's any bad situation in life, and down valuation is so prevalent in property, right? It just happens all over the place. And it's one of those completely out of your control situations that creates such a guttural, raw emotional response of just like, you feel the stomach drop out. It just feels really, and it creates fear, like worry, anxiety, fears as you lead up to it. And unfortunately, because it's our business, right, it's going to be there all the time. And like, it starts to, like at first you might, when you first get there, if you haven't had a downval before, you won't notice it. And then you've had a downval, which is, all of us experience. And then the next time you start feeling it earlier in the process, and you start getting it a bit earlier. Oh gosh, I've got the valuation coming up. How's that going to be? Oh, is it going to be a down valuation? What's that going to mean for all my plans? Oh gosh, I'm not going to get all my money back out. What am I going to do about the investors? It's like this voice starts going in your head, because actually that down valuation means so much to us. It actually impacts the entire business model. And then if it happens again, right, then you're going to start feeling it, not just like a few weeks before. You're going to start feeling it at the moment that you each start thinking about the valuation, the moment you actually have to book it. And you might even be in for like a month or 2 or 3 months. Eventually, that feeling is going to be with you. Like it begins, the seeds of that anxiety, that worry, the potential actually, feeling like it's the world's against you. All of the seeds of that start when you even start the deal.
Yeah,
like you get the offer accepted.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it stops people from even taking any action, because they're in that fear state of, what if I don't get all my money back, or what if I don't get X amount of money back from this deal? So they don't even put in the offer, and then the investment hasn't even started, and they've talked themselves out of it.
And actually, I've seen that really powerfully with investors, with mentees that we work with, where they are not moving forwards. They will literally wait. I've seen months of stalling, not like saying they're stalling. They're saying they're going to take actions, but actually they're not taking actions. It goes like week after week, like, oh, well, you haven't done it. And actually, I written months later, it's because actually they were waiting for their last valuation to come back so that they could see it and go, okay, no, it's going to be fine. That is a good valuation. I feel good. This is going to make it fine. It's almost like they were creating this barrier, stopping the entire business moving, just because their fear is there, the fear that the future valuations aren't going to work. And it doesn't matter how many people around them, how many experts, professionals, mortgage brokers, other investors say the right things, the fear is still the guiding factor. Right. And I guess we've started at fear, but I actually wanted to make this whole podcast episode about the moment, get rid of the end problem, then you get rid of the seed of fear that right. leads up to it. So let's go to the end. Let's start looking at that moment. You have that down valuation.
Yeah, so it comes back. You paid for the report, whether it's had the report from the mortgage company, you paid for it and got a valuation back. You get the piece of paper, you see it, and it's like, it's, I don't know,
It's
30,
awful.
50, 100 grand less than you expected. So in that moment,
that moment's happened. What happens?
yes.
What I found massive was when I started delving into neurologically, chemically, emotionally, like what is happening at that moment. If we start diving into the subconscious programming of our human body, and you start saying, what is this experience that I'm having? Then you start to see a whole nother world. And it's fascinating. It's really crazy. So what we have is this moment in time where you have what I would say is a massive stress on the system. It's a huge stress. And that's what, when something like that unexpected happens, that you're just, that causes you to suddenly fear the future, fear what's going on. It's a stress. And there's so many things. Like stress is basically, it could be a physical stress, emotional stress, like mental stress, all of these things basically causes the system, the body system, to do certain things.
Right.
And everything that is fear-based is stressed, and everything that is like unexpected creates stress. And the basic emotional response stems from our primitive brain, right? Our absolute, however long ago it was, 80,000, 100,000, I can't remember the human, reptilian brain, right? Yeah. That brain has a system in place to deal with stress. So the stress system starts by releasing adrenaline and cortisol to protect you, to help you survive. Right. So we've got this adrenaline cortisol just flies into the system, and the body has a whole response system to that. Now, the first thing that your body does is you've got a chemical released into the system, adrenaline, cortisol. The body and the mind, more importantly, feels that, and there's a physiological response, right? So the body immediately starts, you get the sweaty palms, you get the heart rate raising, all of these things that are designed to help you survive in the wilds from some dinosaur or something, right? Maybe not a dinosaur, but saber-tooth tiger. Yeah. Yes. These things start happening physiologically, and then the brain notices immediately. The brain notices, and it starts thinking. And the mind goes, what is this? What is this feeling? And it starts to correspond the physiological sensations that you're having with its past experiences to try and work out what it should do to respond and what it should start thinking to respond. And your mind, that is not in your control, is starting to come up with thoughts and starts to say, okay, I'm feeling this feeling. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to survive? And starts to think, right, what are the things? And it starts coming up with the reasons for that feeling. And the reasons you're going to start feeling in your mind are like, down valuation. You're going to start going, okay, this is a nightmare. End of the world. Oh my God, the whole deal's ruined. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to find investment. I can even feel it saying those words, right? Just saying words is powerful. And I can feel the goosebumps coming, that feeling of stress coming to my system. That's what the mind does. It literally just identifies the feeling.
Yeah, it shuts down certain parts of the brain. So your logical, intelligent part of the brain, it gets suppressed in order for the blood and other things to have more energy to fight or flight or possibly freeze. That's another fight, flight or freeze. Those are the reactions of that part of the brain, the amygdala, the part of the brain that causes all this, stress release hormones. And you actually become less intelligent. So people who are in a constant state of stress and that reptilian brain, they are actually less intelligent IQ wise, and they've done experiments with this. When people are stressed, they're less intelligent and less have a less high IQ and EQ than someone who is in a sort of optimistic, positive intelligence, visionary type. I see the possibilities of the world. That's when you're making more neural connections on the left side of that prefrontal cortex. Positive intelligence makes you more intelligent and sees opportunity and lets you out. But by being stressed, you're causing yourself to be less intelligent. So what's the next step then? What's the solution?
So, before we go to the solution, I want to just finish off what happens in the body, right? So the brain, which is now shut down, gone into survival mode, and exactly as you say, you're now unable to problem solve, your tunnel visioned, your focus is all narrowed, and you're more stupid. It's come up with this. It then sends a signal. It sends a thing called a neuropeptide, basically. It's created that then signals down the spine to the rest of the body to release more of the chemical. It literally says, I am stressed. This is a stressful situation. Body, respond with more stress, right? And it sends it right down there. And the body then releases more adrenaline, more cortisol, and it goes, fuck, this is a really bad situation. And the body does that. It gets heightened. The brain then hears that again, and it goes back in the same cycle. And your brain goes, oh my God, the body's really getting stressed. Oh my God, why is this? And it heightens the level of alertness, and you get even more stupid, even less able to problem solve. This is a cycle your body goes through, and it's the mindlessness of the body. The body basically affects the mind.
Yes.
And here's the thing, right? Where is this coming from? Like, in theory, the body is responding from past experience.
Right.
Past historical experience. So the next thing to note, and this is where what I say was so fantastically helpful for me to learn this stuff, because I found out the body is responding not to the current situation. It is not, your body's, the hormones have not been released because it's worried about that down valuation. It's because it has identified the body with a past emotional trauma.
Right.
This is where psychiatrists get their money from, right?
Yes.
From your childhood.
Yeah. That's right. So an emotion is a memory of a past trauma, a past event in particular that triggered a belief that you then had, that was then memorized, a belief that was then memorized because of that emotional event that happened in your past. So what you're remembering in this moment, in the stress, is that past trauma, not necessarily consciously going, oh, it was when my dad did this, or my mum did that, or I was told off at school, or whatever. It often is very subconscious, and we don't even know about it. Sometimes it happens in the womb. But when you hypnotize people and go to that traumatic event, stuff they haven't thought about for 30, 40 years comes up, and they can, and that's when the moment with the seed of that trauma was planted, and that created part of your personality now. So it's fascinating when you look into it, but it is so useful to understand this, because from a place of understanding we can then shift our perception. But sorry, I jumped.
You're completely right. And so that's the thing, right? We've got this traumas from our past, which actually most of them were created between the ages of 0 and basically 10. The years when you weren't, during those years, you don't actually have your beta brainwave function working. Your brain can't actually function properly at a beta brainwave. Beta brainwave is the rational mind,
right?
Which means that all of those events from childhood are being completely unlogically processed. They're totally processed by our dream mind, by the state that is subconscious, in theory, the part of us that is basically going straight into the system to create our egoic system, our ability to make sense of the world, comes from these emotional traumas, right? Which means, okay, when you start thinking about it, our entire perspective of the world, everything we look at and perceive and then make sense of, stems from traumas. Like our egoic system, our way of making sense of the world, that's where it's come from, mostly traumas, which is crazy.
It is. It's mad. Basically, we as we grow up through our childhood and other things, there's research now around traumas that we inherit from our parents, possibly even grandparents. But we grow up and we have experiences in life, and they are filters that we then see the world through. And that causes us to create effectively our personality in a way, because personality is effectively our thinking and feeling. And those are effectively habitual ways of thinking and feeling, which then creates our personality. And obviously there's some uniqueness around that as well with other things, but it's that science hasn't quite caught up with exactly how the personality is formed, other than understanding from the psychological point of view that the traumas and the experiences of life. So so then we see the world through these lenses of this trauma at this age, and this trauma at that age, and this trauma, and that then dictates how we perceive the world
and how we react
to the things like that. So
and I think we're getting to the real crux of the matter now: perception. This is the biggest moment that we all have to, I think, become aware of. I think self-awareness of your own perception is massive, and those who don't realize that their personality is nothing more than a habitual automated system designed to help you survive this thing we call life. It is literally a construct that your mind has crafted without your conscious choice. It's crafted a way for you to make sense of the world and respond accordingly in a way that is going to help you to survive. That's it. And we've all have different experiences, and we've all come from different DNA, different parents who had different experiences, and that means we have different personalities. But it is literally just a program that's running our personality. It's a program, and that personality program is creating our perception of what we see. And I think that brings me to that there was a real light bulb thing for me, a light bulb moment when I was watching the Great British Bake Off. I might have said this in a past podcast because it was so powerful for me, but let's say it again in case anyone's missed it. Light bulb moment, Great British Bake Off. There was 1 week in the Great British. I hope everyone knows the Great British Bake Off, by the way. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to explain it. But basically, in this competition, at the end of each episode, someone is eliminated. And in 1 week, there was a week where 2 people were eliminated. It was a guy and a girl. And I was like watching this. I was like, wow, okay, 2 people eliminated. And the camera moves around and it zeroes in on the girl. And as her name is spoken, you see this unbelievable, like absolute, it was like total, the world has fallen apart. Her entire face falls. The tears start coming. Like the pain that she was experiencing inside emotionally was like there, present on her face. It's like the end of her world.
Yeah.
It was so sad to watch.
Her chair.
Yeah. It was like unbelievable. It was like literally someone had just died in front of her.
Yeah.
And then you see her doing that. And then the guy, the camera zooms onto him. His name is said. And I'm expecting a similar reaction, right? You see his face and he just starts to smile. You actually see he goes from tense, because as they wait for their name to be called, they're tense. And then you actually see him relax. His body opens up and he begins to smile. And he's like, oh, it's almost like a weight's come off of his shoulders. His whole being opens up and he goes, oh, you know what? I thought it was probably me. Like, exact same experience.
Right.
They are in the same place, the same time. They put the same effort in. They've been to the same round, same experience. One person devastated, the other happy.
Right.
I'm like, what has just happened? 2 perceptions that are the opposite end of the world. Like, this is it. This is what we need to be, like that guy. We need to have, if we can have that with every negative experience in our lives, life would be amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. There's nothing. This is the thing. Life happens, and we make loads of judgments and attachments to the way it should be. I recently finished a fantastic book called Solve for Happy by a chap called Mo Gaudat, and he has a formula for happiness, and it's about the events that happen in your life minus your expectations of what you think should happen and your attachments to that, and that's what happiness is. So if you effectively lower your expectations or don't have any expectations, then life just happens and you can choose to how you react. But if you always have expectations of it has to be like this for me to be happy, it has to be like this for me to, be successful, and that's what causes us to be unhappy, to get really down about it. But if we can go, you know what life is, and I can choose what word comes after is, that's power. That's empowerment. I always remember a little story about there was a sage, and the students asked him, so how is it that you're so happy the whole time, master? And he says, quite simply, I don't mind what happens. And that's so powerful. When you don't mind what happens in life, and you can choose how you react, how you want to see it, that's when you're empowered. And that's where the studies now around positive intelligence is growing, that people who go, you know what, this has happened and that's just the way it is. Okay, where's the opportunity? Where's the good that can come out of this? And to the book that I mentioned by Mo Gaudat, he started writing that book 17 days after his 21-year-old son died through human error, and it was all preventable.
Wow.
And how incredible, there's nothing worse than, I think, losing your child, to something that's entirely preventable. But he did, and rather than seeing it as something that's really negative and bad, and every day he would love to have him back, but at the same time he's taking the best bits out of that and creating a new life for himself and building on the positive aspects of it, and that's why he's written the book to empower and make 10 million people, 10 more million people happier. So what an incredible legacy to that effectively his son has helped him create. So, from the worst event to creating it and turning it into something brilliant and amazing. I mean, wow, if everyone could do that,
yeah,
that would just transform the world, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's, these sages, these wise people of the past, these saints, all these sayings and things that we hear, and so many of them, they're so obvious, like the ones you've heard, all like just you got to just let it go. You've just got to don't have attachments, don't have expectations, and like all of these things. I think they're so simple in concept, but actually so hard to do. And they're so hard to do because they're actually opposite. They're separate. They're completely opposite to the body survival mechanism, which is where I started. Right. That's why I started there, because they're not actually in congruent with that. They're not. The body is fighting that, and so we have to find a way to overcome that as human beings. We have to find a way to choose how we feel, to override the system, and to say, okay, my body is reacting as such one way. My body has its own perspective, but that's nothing to do with what's happening in front of me now. And if I can disconnect those two things, then I can say, okay, that body, yep, fine, you do your thing, set that aside. I'm not going to react to you, and I'm not going to let my mind start to come up with all that chatter that then puts a rationale on this, because I know that's all coming from some past trauma. I know that, so I'm not going to let it happen. Yes. And then instead, you can start to look forwards and say, okay, there's a better perspective, there's a bigger vision here, and you start to look at all those wonderful sayings. What's it there? There's obviously the silver lining to every cloud as a starting point, but actually there's this wonderful one that I know, which is like the sky looks grey. It could look completely grey. You have a picture that's just completely grey, but if you expand that picture, that's just a small cloud in a completely blue sky, right? All you're seeing is the cloud.
Right.
And what I've started to learn as I've gone through many of these various traumas, modern day traumas, not my history ones, the ones that become traumatic in business, and I've started to get 6 months, a year down the line, sometimes a bit further, and you look back and you start to say, oh gosh, the worst things that were happening to me, so like every single time with hindsight, were actually fantastic for me. Yes. They were the best things. And the worse the thing was, the better it was for me. Right. And sometimes that's literally, it's not just like better for me in my development. Sometimes it's great. It's great for my development. I'm like, okay, actually, I wouldn't be who I am now without that. Okay. Right. Sometimes I literally look back and I say, that was awful at the time. But now I realize if that thing had happened as I wanted, my business would be screwed right now. It was just like, damn lucky it went wrong. Yeah. Things like that. And when you start looking with hindsight and you get this distance, this perspective of time, you can start to see that all the bad crap that happens is there's a better reason for it. There's a bigger picture, and you can draw on that. So if you can be in the now and you can say, I won't listen to the past self. I'm going to ignore that history, trauma, and the body's reaction, and I'm going to stop my chatter of my brain. I'm not going to listen to that, and instead, I'm going to accept that I can't see yet in this moment, I can't see why this is the best thing that could have happened to me. I just don't know it yet, but there will be a reason. And if I can just let go of all that crap from my past that is trying to control me right now, I will be in the optimum state to perform, to find a great solution right now to get me to that positive end result that I can't see yet. And I will get there much quicker if I just let go of all that crap from the past. This is a process we have to learn.
It is a process, and two concepts that are worth noting here, and for the listeners, is the idea that life happens for us, not to us. So every event is actually there to help us awaken to something that we haven't yet seen, a perception, as we mentioned, that we haven't seen the world from. So when you can step back and get a bigger picture, then you can potentially see the greater outcome. But sometimes it takes time to evolve. When people are going through really traumatic events like a divorce, for example, or down valuation, but or maybe they're going bust, their business is failing, or something massive like that. When you're in it, it's the worst thing in the world. You cannot see the wood from the trees. It's just dire, and you want to get out. over time, and time is a wonderful healer, you look back and go, actually, if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't be where I am now, and where I am now, it is getting better, and I've realized and grown as a person, etc. So it's all there to help us grow. Problems are there to help us to grow. So that's the first concept. The second one is that you cannot have one thing without its opposite also being true. So you can't have hot without cold, you can't have night without day, you can't have positive without negative. And that's key to being aware of, is that you might see something as negative, but by seeing it as negative, all you're not seeing is the positive. So by just knowing that you're only seeing it as negative, but you know the concept that the positive also has to exist, helps you to then look for the positive, and helps you recover quicker from whatever event is happening. So that's a wonderful state to be in, so that if something does, something like a downval does happen, give yourself 5-10 minutes to feel the feelings of the cortisol and adrenaline that make you feel bad, and maybe just allow yourself 10 minutes to feel that, and then choose to start looking for the positives, looking for solutions, because the brain is a solution orientated machine. As you say, it's just like a computer. It's looking to solve things. And if we allow the chemicals to run through our body, so we allow ourselves a certain amount of time to grieve effectively, and then focus on the positives, then actually amazing things can happen for you, and you can move on quicker. And remember, high performance is about your ability to recover quickly. The tennis players who get really stressed between points tend to lose the match. The ones that recover between a loss and the next point are the ones who are the champions, who tend to win the game. They say that winning a tennis match is you don't lose against another player, you lose against yourself. I think that is exactly the same in life. You don't lose against the situation that's going on, you lose against your own mind and your own chemicals in your body. So
and this is the flip of perspective, right? This is the switch we can do. We have the power to flip our perspective and just say, right, that's one perspective, but there is another, and I find that new perspective. And then through that lens that you're now seeing, you can start to see the positives. And then if you start to believe those positives, that's the moment that your perception shifts. You start to say, right, I can now see that there's a flip side to this. And you only get there by, like you say, going through, allowing the negative, let it go, allow yourself to find the different perspective. And there will be many, there always are. And then you start to look and you go, okay, actually, that is really true. And okay, I can see that it's actually a really good thing now. And it's all about time. How long does it take to get there? And the quicker we can make that switch, that's the more powerful, empowered we are. And those people who just always seem to land on their feet, right? Some people who just seem to have luck in life. Yeah. And the truth is, they're damn good at this. Right? They are amazing at this.
Yes.
This is it. This is the skill of being lucky.
Right.
Right. And I feel that we, as a society, especially in the West, it's like we ignore that this is a thing. We seem to allow our emotions to be like this rampant thing that is allowed, that has, it's right to control us. And that's how it should be, because that's the experience we have to go through. And it's almost like suffering that is part of the human experience that we should have to go through. And if we're not doing that, we're kind of not giving it the weight it deserves, the respect it deserves somehow. But that's all just a conditioned belief system that keeps us, that limits us. It holds us back. And I think this realizing, again, flipping that perspective, shifting your belief system and saying, actually, I don't have to have negative emotions that are controlling me all the time. And I can actually empower myself to choose not just a different way of looking at things, not just a different perception, but actually choose my own emotion.
Yes.
I can choose my own emotional response. I don't have to allow the body to control that. There are ways of doing that. You can train yourself to feel positive through and happy through negative experiences, and that's just something we just ignore in the West. I think it's like not a thing, but it is a thing, and that's actually one of the things that we've we've made, not only have we worked on ourselves like massively, we talked about this on other episodes, but it improves your ability to problem solve, to find your flow state. It improves your business capabilities incredibly. But we've like gone into these processes with ourselves and now with our clients on our retreat, where we actually say, right, how do you do this? How is it that we go from where we are right now, which is conditioned human beings who follow a belief system, have a set perspective, and somehow are completely controlled by our past traumas, which creates our current emotions? How do you go from that person to being totally empowered, able to see with clear awareness how your body is trying to control you, and able to then, through practice and through specific techniques, choose your response to the world and not allow the world to instigate a response in you which is negative and not helpful?
Right.
That's a skill to learn. And
Absolutely.
that actually is, it's for me, it's actually one of the highest skills to learn. It's more powerful than anything else I've learned in business. Yes. Because it affects everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people try to intellectualize solutions, but without feeling them. And, we've got thinking, we've got feeling, we have to address both. And one of the best ways is to stop and take a step back. And hence why we are such big fans of meditation and also group environments, where you're with others in that, effectively, that energetic frequency of breaking through perceived barriers that we had before. So meditation and group environments, because environment is the most powerful thing to change your state. So when you do those two things on a regular basis, you will get perspective and you're able to change, and see things were previously bad. Now good.
The thing about meditation as well is it generally has a bad rap because people don't understand it. And actually, everything we talked about today, the reason meditation is the answer is because meditation is the practice. If you want to go and you go and become a pianist, you've got to practice your scales.
Yes.
If you want to go become a tennis player, you've got to practice your swing. Meditation is the internal practice of exactly what we've just discussed. Right? It's just you need to know what it is you're practicing, and you need to go through that process. You actually have to identify that there is a problem first, to then realize that the solution, the practice we have to then input is meditation, because meditation is actually just sitting down quietly with yourself and looking at these types of response systems, and actually trying to not necessarily intellectually work it out, but trying to work out how to calm your system. Yes. And how to take back those reins of what the system is doing. So whether that system is responding with stress or whatever, how do you make it so that you aren't beholden to that anymore? That's what meditation is. It's just unbelievably powerful, because it's like taking back the reins of your entire experience of life.
Yes, and getting the body back into balance, because when you're stressed, you're out of balance basically, and so it's bringing it back to balance. Brilliant.
So what do you reckon? Can you feel great about a downval? Really has shifted everything in terms of how well our property business goes since we've stopped worrying about those stupid things in the same way. And if you can see the real transformative effect that shifting your mindset towards how you view what's going on in your property business can have, then and you want to work with us, check out our property business breakthrough retreat that we are running in Italy in September 2024. If you want to come and spend a few days with us locked away in a stunning villa, we won't lock you away actually, that's just hanging out in a lovely villa, and really shifting that underlying narrative and perspective that you've got on property to just make everything be more fun, more flowing and easier, then this is for you. So you can find all the information at www.property-strategy.com/PBB for the Property Business Breakthrough. So this time next week, you'll be joined by myself and Dave, and we are talking about the inner game of property and what we have learnt recently from playing a heck of a lot of golf. Turns out there's a lot we can learn in property from that stupid game of golf as well. So until then, have a great week ahead.